right, well, let's get started. Mike, you want to just quickly talk about item A?
Yeah, we got item A. First, will be on the agenda is the Parkstone subdivision, the East Park PUD. It was originally a 42-lot subdivision. We heard it at the last Planning Commission meeting. It was held over until this Planning Commission meeting to revise the green space plan to meet some of the Planning Commission comments. They have submitted a revised green space plan that appears to meet the intent of the Planning Commission. They'll be providing some further supporting documents to be able to show the Planning Commission and take to the meeting. And that's really the update there. None of the roads or drainage or anything else was changed by the revisions that needed to be made. So we will present that to the Planning Commission and they will make their decision.
Okay. Great. Mike, you got the second one. We can jump into that one.
So moving on to SD 20.28. It's the Park Place on Greeno. It's a 35-unit multiple occupancy project. It's own PUD currently. It's about 5.25 acres. I believe we talked about this in a previous DRC meeting. There was landscaping, design, and tree protection issues that we were evaluating and get some additional information from. And I know we got Christian and Larry and everybody involved with that project with us here today. Larry, yesterday afternoon, I sent you some comments regarding that project and reviewing the landscape plans, and we went over it with Paul Merchant. And we're actually going to send the actual plans to the tree committee for the landscape ordinance and let them review the site to get their input on some of the trees that are being proposed to be removed and the tree mitigation that is there. So we're going to send that. Paul is coordinating that, and we're going to help get those plans to them. If they need any other additional information, I'll reach out to you guys. On the plat, mentioned it doesn't show any of the improvements or easements and some of the site data. With the MOP having preliminary and final plat approval, the plat will look similar to a traditional subdivision plat, where it'll still have, where's the road going to be, what are the easements going to be. Now, obviously, during construction, that may possibly change, and that's where it'll be looked at the final plat stage. But any utility easements that have to be ran across and somewhere out there by Greeno would need to be shown. The plat you submitted does show the two lots being combined into one, like a replat would. It has the signature blocks. But Beaver, correct me if I'm mistaken, but we will need those improvements and different easements to be able to shown on there that can be recorded. We'll have that for the future as well. I know, Larry, you have some questions about that plat.
I think it might just be a thing with y'all's verbiage that by any surveying standard is not a plat what you're asking for. It is what the county calls a master site plan, and I guess maybe that's where the confusion lies, is when you ask for a plat, that's what we provided, but it sounds like you also want a master site plan that's going to be recorded that has the MOP components. Is that what I'm hearing? Because what we need to occur legally to build across the property lines is a one-lot division. Is what we were submitting. That's what we thought you were asking for when you asked for a plat. But y'all are now requiring the MOPs to be recorded.
The final plat stage will be recorded.
I know you call it a final plat because Fairhope likes to initiate this MOP process under the subdivision regs, but please correct the verbiage. It's not a plat. I mean, we are not doing a subdivision. It might be a site plan that we record, but that's where the confusion is occurring, is y'all's terminology is just not accurate.
We're not here to debate what the verbiage is and what different definitions are.
With y'all wanting these recorded. What's that? I couldn't hear you.
Well, I said we're not here to debate the definitions of the verbiage that we use for the county uses for whoever uses. Our subdivision regulations, as you just said, is where the MOP lives and is required to go through what the subdivision regulations call a preliminary plat and a final plat stage, which is the recorded document that shows the setbacks, the different drainage easements, and where things are going to be located, the right of way, just like a regular plat of land that is subdivided.
All right.
And
so
Larry, if I may jump
let's
in
go
here
through
real
those
quick.
items. We don't have drainage easements. We don't have utility easements. We have setbacks, which are shown on the plat that was submitted. And like every other subdivision that we submit to y'all, the preliminary plat shows the boundary lines and it shows the setbacks. And then those are accompanied by construction documents which show everything that you just asked for. So I still don't understand what's missing.
Hey, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So, hey, Larry, you're correct. And the short answer is that when we get to that point, if it to accomplish what the city needs, it may be that there may be a recorded affidavit that has a blanket utility easement or a similar instrument can satisfy that process. And like Mike said, we don't have to get in the weeds on it now.
Mm-hmm.
The final plat process is what we need to make certain we close out MOPs. So there will be a means of handling that when that time comes.
And I understand there's a recorded document that is required by the MOP, and y'all want to make sure that what is approved in the MOP is memorialized in that recorded document. But I don't think the one lot division is the place to do that, and that's where my concern lies. Is we can add whatever signature blocks are required on the site plan for that recorded document to record it, but we also have another process that needs to happen, which is the one lot division, and I would like clarity on what signature blocks y'all want on the site plan portion of it, because we've recently on the county side, because what y'all might not know, or maybe you do know, is on the county side, they want the OT type projects to be recorded immediately. As soon as they approve it, before we can start construction, we have to record it. And then on y'all side, it's recorded at the end of construction, which means now we're going to have when we have cross jurisdictions, like let's say Thompson Hall is a great example, quadplexes. We've already recorded a site plan that the county required, and then y'all are going to want one at the end of construction. And so just for y'all's, we need to figure out who's signing what. The county's greatly restricted our signature blocks for their master site plan down to the county staff level, getting utilities out of the mix because it's really just that part's a site issue. And what my question or concern is when I record Thompson Hall, we're just using that one as an example, for y'all's sake, am I then overriding what the county had me sign and submit? Because we have two different jurisdictions wanting us to record a site type plan, y'all's being the MOP and theirs being a plan development.
And Larry, that's a question we can't answer today, but it's a question.
Oh, I know, but I wanted to put that on your radar because y'all's recording of this document seems to be a newer thing. I haven't had to do it on past MOPs, and it's not something I haven't heard of. But now we've got two different jurisdictions asking us to record similar documents, and one wants it at the beginning, one wants it at the end. And if they were both recorded at the same time, they would just be one document. But now I'm afraid one's going to overwrite the other, and we'll have different signature blocks on both of them because y'all want your signature blocks and they want their signature blocks.
Well, you just need to annex all this stuff, and then you only have to deal with us.
That's funny, Buford.
That's a good point, Larry. So thanks for letting us know. We'll kind of talk with the county, see if there's anything we can do to coordinate that a little better on the MOP, especially, and just to see what they're doing. It's good for us to kind of know this. We have so many projects in our planning jurisdiction, but within the county as well. So we'll take a look at that and see what we can
do. I think Buford's saying we're okay to move forward, but we do probably need to look at, because y'all want basically my MOP site plan recorded is what I'm thinking I'm hearing. Is that correct? At the end of construction, we would do an as-built MOP showing all the improvements.
That is the preferable thing, Larry, where it's available is to have a traditional subdivision plat or a recorded plat that shows everything. You have all the signature blocks. We know where the utilities are. We know where the easements are on top of them. We certainly understand that may not be appropriate every single development every single time. We'll still go through the final, I'm going to use the word approval process through the Planning Commission, and then as a part of that, make it clear what document needs to be recorded into the public realm. And I think you're correct, Larry. We're probably using the term plat very informally, and so that creates a little bit of confusion. So when we get to that point, we'll make certain it's very clear in the staff report exactly what we do and how it's laid out.
Okay. All right.
A couple comments that were on there, Larry. I think one was a unit number, and I did see that. I just overlooked where that was on the saw that on the application. I guess I was looking for units labeled for each building. I know that the PUD was kind of vague, that it approved a building footprint and square footage was kind of all that was that during the PUD stage. But I did see that there is that 35 units, so that takes care of that portion. And I know with the utilities and any comments that they have, I know you've been in touch with Mike Allison and Jeremy about electric and the sewer and all that. So any comments that the utility department has, those will either be addressed with conditions of approval have already been worked out between the utility department and your guys' team.
All right. Yeah, we've been talking with Mike, and last I heard on the sewer, because the original comments were for us to install a lift station versus doing gravity, but that comment went away, and their preference is what we have shown, and so I've sent Mike an email earlier this week, just discussing the electrical side of it. So I think we're coordinating as quickly as we can.
Yeah, Jeremy and I are probably going to go out there today to take a look at that. So I'll be able to get back to you fairly soon.
All right, sounds great.
And that was really the only comments I had. Does any other staff members have any questions or comments for Larry or anybody on his team?
Since we have the landscape architect on the phone and Christian and Oliver, I think I saw both of y'all on here. Maybe it's just Christian. What was the staff's, I know y'all are sending the landscaping off to the tree committee, but what was y'all's take on, I think we as a team spent a lot of time out there looking at the trees, trying to figure out which ones we can save. Paul was a great help out there marking trees that were not worthy of being saved. And so I was just curious what y'all's thoughts were, what y'all are reporting to the tree committee. And I don't know if Christian might have had a conversation with Paul. If so, you can jump in, Christian. But since we're all here, I figured let's take this opportunity to talk about it while we can.
Yeah, I haven't talked with Paul since we submitted that the set. We tried as best we could to save as many trees within the development framework that we could, and then come up with a method for mitigation. And so hopefully that meets the city standards. And but if there are any initial reactions or comments, we'd love to have them.
Okay. So that was kind of the baseline. You know, what you have now is what we were kind of expecting on the front end. So when we started looking at that and looking at the tree ordinance, there is on a commercial development such as this, it is going to them for review. I don't think the expectation is to save every tree, but I think there is an expectation that they get a swing at it. And we understand. I don't think, and I'm speaking gut reaction here because this is Hunter, and I just looked at it briefly. So, you know, hold on just a second. Who we got? Somebody. Let me see who's. If I think we can support, we know we've got to get a parking and asphalt in there. They get kind of a look at, have y'all done enough to preserve the trees? There's one tree in particular that I don't see how it can be preserved by what's shown. I mean, the biggest live oak in there is 5 feet from a building and 20 feet on the other two sides. So that, you know, this kind of elevates above where Paul was comfortable making the just green light. And if the tree ordinance says when he gets in those situations, send it to the tree committee for debate, you know, for their opinions. So that's what we're doing. You know, I think we can be a voice of reason where it's not, expectation is not to save every tree out there. And we can, and I think you've done a good job of mitigating by planting new trees. So we can hopefully be some of that helping that mediation to get the final solution.
And let me just say, the tree that you have in question, there's never been anyone who's indicated that that they want any harm to that tree. The first time we saw that tree, we knew that it was special. The building lines that are shown on there, you know, those are just potential building areas. They're not true building lines. And I believe there's a note on the plat. If not, we can definitely talk about adding one about protecting that tree and getting an arborist involved whenever we start looking at true buildings going on in these areas. But you know, that is a nice tree, and it's there's a reason that courtyard's there is because when we walked the site, it was decided that's where the courtyard needs to be to help protect that tree. But also in the conversations with the tree committee, and this first time I've had to deal with the tree committee. I don't know if Christian, you've had to go before them, but is there a chance for us to discuss what we've done? Because I mean, we've shifted parking around to try to save trees and different things like that. We didn't just go through and X out. Like, well, no, that was shown as a parking space. We've moved stuff around to try to give these trees a chance of survival.
Absolutely. I want y'all to be included in that. And this may be kind of new to the tree committee. They haven't done this in a while. A lot of the developments have been commercial or residential and haven't elevated this per the tree ordinance. So, or been built in farmland without existing trees like this. But we'll coordinate that. I've already tried to reach out to Paul, their chair, and start that coordination. So we'll definitely, once we hear from them, get you guys in the loop and y'all can be a part of that conversation.
Appreciate it.
The only other, I think I sent an email earlier today, Larry, is if do you have a phasing schedule, or what kind of is the we're going to try to develop, you know, south to north, north to south? Any ideas what to?
The last time we spoke about phasing is all the infrastructure is going to go in at once, and then they'll just have buildable pads. And at that point, it's all who wants to buy which pad to build their building on. So as far as the site work goes, it's all going at once.
All right, and the perimeter landscaping and any landscaping besides, I guess, the interior around the main buildings. The plan is to put all the exterior landscaping in, the detention pond and everything of that nature.
Yeah, I'll speak to that. I mean, what's shown is intended to go in. I think this is Mike that I'm addressing, but the intent is to go in and basically build that out, irrigation and landscape, that allows the stormwater to be systems to be functioning and planted, and then each individual site as it develops will have its own landscape package, landscape and hardscape that will hopefully be involved in, Lord willing, the creek don't rise, but we'll be delineating those areas and detailing them at a later date to make them all flow as if they were developed at the same time.
Okay. And will the existing paths that are going to be created, are those going to be sodded or mulched? I'm just trying to get an overall view of, if this goes through and gets built out, what's going to be on the ground potentially for years. If nothing sells for 5 years, what's
the current plan calls for those interior, I'm going to call them islands because they're kind of just isolated. They're called out to be hydro-seeded right now.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Okay. All right. Y'all have anything else? Any other staff or anyone else have any comments? All right. Well, great. Thank y'all. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Talk to y'all later.
All right. SD 2039.
All right. Good morning, everyone. This is Buford. Give me just a second to share screens here. And so, David, I see you're with us. I'm going to put the preliminary plat here up on screen, if everyone can see that, for Lawrence Road subdivision. And we've got a fairly routine 2-lot minor subdivision on Lawrence Road, north of Fairhope Avenue. You see the 2 lots right there. It's approximately 40 acres, dividing it up into 2 rectangular lots. And David, everything here is fairly routine, but like we seem to be dealing with on pretty much every minor subdivision that we've been looking at the last 2 years, is the persistent issue of sidewalks and fire hydrants. Is certainly the case on this one. There's an existing fire hydrant right here. If you can see the area that I've highlighted in light red, if we follow the subdivision regulations, this would require installing at least two more fire hydrants if we follow the subdivision regulations. And then, of course, putting sidewalks along this front on Lawrence Road. Everything else is fairly routine for a minor subdivision.
Yeah, and those are pretty big things. So this is a family. The family has owned this 38 acres for close to 100 years, I think. And they had someone approach them about the north portion of this property. And so that's why we divided it. So, we're really not a development. I realize we fall under all this, but they're just simply going to sell that off to someone who probably has plans to develop the lot 1.
And David, what I'll jump in here, and we certainly understand that, and it's our job to enforce the subdivision regulations as they're written. Just a couple things for you as far as, we had some amendments to the Sub Regs that went into effect in early part of July. The sidewalk issue is an issue that we've clarified it where the Planning Commission can rule on that as an item of consideration. That does not require requesting a waiver. It's simply a matter of staff looks at it, we make a recommendation, Planning Commission can rule on it. So it doesn't necessarily require a waiver per se. We just discuss it and they rule upon it. The fire hydrants, if there is a desire not to install the 2 additional fire hydrants, that would still be a waiver request if that was their desire. I know Eric Cortinas is researching this. He is not able to join us today. he is researching this, because if we get a recommendation other than what is in the subdivision regulations, it's his call as the authority having jurisdiction. And I know he's researching this, but he doesn't really have an answer just yet. So that's how we'll kind of leave it for now, David, unless there's anything else I can help you with on the rest of it. The rest of it's fairly routine.
No, let's see,
David.
there was, hello?
Hello, can y'all hear me? This
Yes,
is Karen
I can.
Alford. Okay, we just wanted to clarify. My mother literally has the property now passed down through, and my cousin. But this is property's being split because two individuals want to build two individual personal homes on each parcel, and that's it. Not a subdivision. Two homes, one on each division, one on each lot. So I just wanted to clarify that.
And Ms. Alford, I appreciate you jumping in here, and understand, ma'am, with city staff, even creating two lots is a subdivision.
Okay, we just wanted to make sure you understood that. That's all.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And this is a minor subdivision as requested. This is a minor subdivision. And so anything 4 lots or less is a minor subdivision. And what that means is it only requires one appearance before the planning commission to get it approved. But we have to enforce the subdivision regulations even if it's only 2 lots.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Thank you.
So, David, any other questions I can answer for you as far on behalf of staff?
Well, what about the minimum finished floor elevation? I mean, this thing has quite a bit of fall across it. I mean, I'm not sure how to pick a spot to put a minimum finished floor.
That's a good point.
David, what I would recommend is speak to Eric, and I think that instead of trying to reflect that in the middle of the lot on the plat, that you preserve that as a note under the surveyor's notes or under the surveyor's notes. I think we can put a note on there. If you would coordinate that with Eric, and he can give you some input on that, because we do have that happen from time to time, and we cover that section by reflecting it as a note.
Okay. Now, this comment about highway improvement plan and traffic study. Obviously, we aren't generating traffic here, but you want a letter from Larry stating that?
Yes, yeah, and David, Larry, that is something that Larry does very routinely on minor subdivisions. He basically says that he's evaluated the trip generation and that it doesn't warrant creating those documents.
Okay.
And that's actually fairly routine on a minor subdivision.
And then the only other thing, does what Eric is looking at, will that also include the need for a fire flow test?
Yeah, we have to have a fire flow test. So you have to have a fire flow test of the nearest existing hydrant. So that hydrant at the intersection of Gayfer and Lawrence Road will have to be flow tested. Yes, sir. Yeah, that's one of the basic requirements of a minor sub.
Okay, I think that's all I had.
And David, can you stay with me for like 30 seconds? Hey, David, just to address something from Kim Burmeister. We know the wetlands on that site. You've noted on here that it's been delineated. We'll need a copy of that delineation.
Yeah, I saw that comment.
Yeah, we'll need a copy of that delineation report for file purposes.
Sure.
All right, David, that's all I have, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to unshare.
Okay, next is SD 2041, Samara.
Good morning. Let's see if I can share my screen. Okay, this is SD 2041. This is a request of RSA for Battles Trace Phase 7. It's a 38-lot subdivision. I sent out the cover letter and the checklist to Mr. Tim Lawley. We only had a few comments in regards to revisions that would need to be made. We would need that stormwater video. Also, the maintenance plan needed to be amended to reflect 5-year inspection in lieu of the 3-year inspection. In terms of the errors and omissions, we just need some clarification about if it was covered by their professional liability insurance. And again, the stormwater inspection videos would need to be provided. I am not sure if Mr. Lawley or a representative is here on the call.
Hey, Samara, this is Tim. I'm on the call.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. Regarding the video, the stormwater in this development is private, and to date, we have not submitted a stormwater video for any of these developments. I'm not sure if something's changed on the city's end as far as this requirement, but that has not been required for any of these submittals yet. So that's why we did not make that submittal or a part of the submittal.
Okay.
Hey, and Tim, this is Buford, and
Hey,
Tim,
Buford.
I helped Samara review this one, and I didn't remember that. I didn't remember that when we were reviewing it, but that's correct. That's correct because none of this is going to be dedicated to the city. What I would say, Tim, is if there is a video out there that we could have for file purposes, we'd like to have one because you never know what might happen in the future. But that's correct. That hadn't been required on previous phases within the TR district.
I understand. And the I thought we had updated the 5-year thing, but I'll go back through and make sure we get that. And then what was the I'm not sure if I quite understand the insurance comment. Could you clarify that a little more for me, please?
And Buford, you may have to assist me with this. In terms of the errors and omissions, it wasn't specifically called out. Is that correct, Buford?
That's right. And Tim, the question is O&M inside general liability?
You mean E&O insurance?
Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry. Good gosh. E&O, yes.
I will have to look into that. I'm not an insurance expert.
All right. Well, Tim, we don't have to get into it now, but there's a reason for that comment that we just want to make certain we've got that clear in our files. So that's not something we need to try to figure out right now.
Yeah, I will look into it and I will get it to our people in our department that handle that and get some clarification for y'all on that.
Sounds great.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Hey, Tim, this is Hunter. I left you a message. I've got a question on Phase 5. After this meeting, can we get in touch?
Yes. You got a question on what?
It's about Phase 5 of Battles Trace, just something that came up.
Okay. No problem.
After we get through with this meeting, if we can touch base, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll call you back, we'll say about 30 minutes or so.
Sounds great.
Okay. I will do it.
You.
Yep.
Thanks, Tim.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
Anybody got anything else on SD 2041? If not, we'll move forward to SD 2042. Carla?
Hello, everyone. Let me share the screen. So this is SD 20.42. Sorry. Public hearing to consider the request of Grand Property LLC for preliminary plat approval of Fairhope Motor Coach Resort Phase 2, a 12-unit multiple occupancy project. The project is approximately 3.88 acres and is located on the north side of State Highway 104, approximately 0.3 miles east of Higby Road. Basically, again, this is Phase 2. Mr. Trey Genwright is the representative for this with Jade Consulting. I sent this yesterday. He and Buford have exchanged some email correspondence, and basically this just green space is the only thing that's kind of different. They from phase 1 was done in 2016. Now they're coming back in with phase 2. At the time that phase 1 green spacing was not required, and it is now. And so that's pretty much the only difference. The other things are minor, and we went over those. So if anybody's there representing Jade, if Mr. Trey's there, if you have any questions or staff has anything they want to add, feel free.
Yeah, this is Trey. Good morning.
Good morning.
The first comment I was going to flip to was your reference to article. I think it's going to be page 5 of your report. It's at the top up there. It's Article 5, Section C, 1B, 17. It just says commentary, and it talks about having 2 access points. And I wanted some clarification on that. This is not a single-family development. Well, first, I didn't know, is the city of Fairhope adopted IBC code, and if so, when? What's the status on that? I know Foley had officially adopted it, and they kind of started some of this more than 30 units, 2 access things for single-family development. But I just try to get some history on that.
Okay, so you're actually outside of the permitting jurisdiction. So the fire authority, it just referenced whoever serves that area. You may want to talk with them to see if you would need 2 points. These have the small units on each unit or lot, and the fire code does reference 30 or more lots having 2 points of entrance and exit, but the area that services this development would be the one to determine whether or not that's necessary. So that's why it was referencing contacting that specific entity.
If 2 things are in place, one, if the jurisdiction has actually accepted the fire code and was enforcing that, and then 2, if this was single-family development, which is not. And so the multifamily type project, which this follows more in line with, is up to 200 units. So I just wanted to make that statement there.
Okay, well, like I said, that area is outside of our permitting jurisdiction, so we just wanted you to let us know what they said.
Let's see here, Max. You got the next one. There was a question about.
So on, yes, the green space requirements, there's one comment that says that a landscape plan is needed and green space calculations. Would green space calculations be sufficient, or is a actual landscape plan required for this development? If we just show that our green space within phase 2 meets the city of Fairhope standards, no landscape plan would be required. Is that correct?
Yes, that can be sufficient.
Okay.
Beefert, did you have something to say, Beefert?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I was just going to concur with that. The only question I have is that Trey and Carla, is this site within the police jurisdiction of the city? And the reason that's important is because if it's within the police jurisdiction, and I'm trying to open that up right now in the city map viewer. If the police jurisdiction is in that area, then the tree ordinance applies. And y'all bear with me, I'm trying to open that up right now.
We also have another, I guess, section of y'all's review letter that says our tree protection plan as shown on our plans is accepted. We did mark every tree 20 inches and greater and showed them as being saved as much as we could.
Okay. Well, hey, gentlemen, and Carla, I think we, and y'all can't see it because I'm not sharing screen, but the police jurisdiction cuts off at Dick Higby Road. So Dick Higby Road in west is the police jurisdiction. So the tree ordinance would not apply to this site. So circling back to where we were and backing up Carla is that essentially show us the green space calculations show us how much green space is in there, and that would satisfy. If it's 10% or greater, then it will satisfy the subdivision regulations, which is what you're trying to get approval of here.
Okay, all right. And then another thing I wanted to ask about on page 35. There's a comment that says individual water meters will be required for each lot or unit. A master meter would not be acceptable. The developer had talked to Fairhope Public Utilities about putting a master meter in for this entire development, and he relayed to me that they were on board with that, and that could be done. Is there a reason we can't master meter this site? With it being MOP, not a single family subdivision, I would think that'd be allowed.
Do we have a representative? I received those comments directly from. Okay.
This is Tim Manuel, Water Department, Ferret Water. Yes, no, we are not accepting a master meter.
Okay.
And from even phase 1, it was turned down.
Well, I don't think it was proposed at phase 1. It was kind of something the developer wanted to retrofit phase 1 with a master meter. And for some reason, I don't know who he spoke with, but he was under the impression that he'd be allowed to do that.
No, sir, we're not doing any master. We're getting, years ago they might allow that, but we have got away from that quite a few years ago, and we're not accepting any master meters. Certainly, I think they were asking for a 6-inch on that.
What's the reason behind the master meter, just for curiosity's sake?
Fire flow purposes and accuracy of low flow rates on a big meter like that. You cannot just put a 6-inch, what they call a compound meter in there. Being it's a single water main that goes in there that's got fire hydrants on it. It will not meet fire protection through that meter.
They make fire meters now that will do that. I mean, there's other
Correct. They do make them, but the accuracy on the low flow part of it, it won't pick up a reading, and I don't quote me on the gallons, but it's somewhere around 8 to 9 gallons on the low flow. So if you use flush a toilet or run a kitchen sink, you'll never catch that water flow.
Okay. Well, I was under the impression some of these newer meters will do that. They'll catch that loss or prevent that loss. And that's why I was thinking there may be a way to satisfy your concerns and get where you don't have so much, minute billing on these little motor meters. Aren't you really doing any service? So I'm trying to figure out a way to clean up the paperwork, quite honestly. And so if there was everybody paid into one fee with the HOA fees, then it would just make life a lot simpler. And so that's what we're trying to figure out. If there's what the reasoning why, then maybe look for opportunities in the future to cover what you're looking for, and then also cover what the consumer is trying to do.
Now we even apartments, office space were individually or all metered.
Yes, sir. I understand that. I'm just trying to be progressive and going forward. There's got to be better ways to do stuff going forward. I don't have to just do it the way we always do it. So it's just a question. Thank you.
Yes,
Is that
sir.
all you got, Max?
We got one more question on page 33. Those comments said, please clarify phase 1's approval was required to get a sidewalk waiver for the entire site along 104. We did not have to get a sidewalk waiver.
Was it part of it?
It wasn't part of it and wasn't required when we did phase 1 along the frontage of 104.
And gentlemen, just to warn you, the planning commission may ask for that. They may ask for that. It's been more than 4 years since the first phase was seen by the planning commission. So just be aware of that. Just be aware of that. Now, I don't know if y'all heard the case we discussed earlier, but the subdivision regulations now do allow sidewalks to be evaluated without a waiver. They have the authority to evaluate and rule on the placement of sidewalks. So in lieu of a waiver, you may just want to simply identify what you just said in your follow-up correspondence to Carla.
Okay, we can do that. That's all we have, all the questions we have.
Okay, anybody else got anything for SD 2042? All right, we will move to SR 20.02. That's going to be Mike Jeffries.
Hey, this is Mike, and this is Portico Phase 2. I think we have with us the engineer of record Chris Lieb, and we have the developer Chris Haley with us, joining us today. How are you guys?
Good. How are you?
Doing good. So sent you an email kind of with a cover letter of some of the review comments that we have noticed so far. Went back and dug down deep into the original approval of the first site plan review of Portico, and also the MOP portion that was approved for Portico. Just trying to cross-reference all that to make sure there's nothing in this plan that would negate any of the previous approvals. Some of the backstory: the original site plan review was 7 two-story buildings, had 33 residential units. It was approved for 23 commercial units. 2 of those buildings being completely residential. I went through and reviewed the minutes from the meeting, watched some of the video. There was a lot of talk of the green space that was there, that large green for the initial review. That was kind of a big talking point, I think a big selling point. I'm just pointing that out. The new site plan, is kind of a different model and does not have as much green space there is. And I understand that at the original approval, this property was zoned straight B2 and it is now zoned B2 and is inside the central business district. The original plan had 7 LID techniques that were used, that were required, and that is where the compact car spaces are currently located. And the new site plan shows those compact car spaces being replaced with townhomes. And I'm not sure if the existing buildings were changed at building, but looking at some of the renderings that I had, shows kind of some of that second floor space of those buildings being open air, like open courtyards or something. And that looks, I think they're completely closed off as to, I don't know if they're residential dwellings upstairs or office dwellings. So we'll need just kind of a count of the current units in phase 1. If you guys could give that information to me with your comments back, and also the square footage for what each unit is. Some of the additional comments was just the building height being in the CBD. There is for mixed use can be up to 40 feet tall, and I just want to assure you that's the mechanical equipment and the architectural details. When that change was done, that was to give an extra 5 feet for some architectural details, not for your roof line to be at 40 feet and then be able to go up beyond that. I'm not sure the exact height of the proposed buildings at this point. Some of the sidewalks along Brown and Stimson are showing 5 feet, and in the CBD, the sidewalks have to be 8 feet. Need some elevations for cottages B. Did not have one for the mixed-use commercial building on Fairhope Avenue. My thoughts are that it's going to mirror what exists if we just kind of confirm that and give the elevations for cottages B. We have them for cottage A. And then we're kind of started talking about the B2 zoning and having those cottages in there for that use. We don't actually have an allowed use for multiple single-family dwelling units, which the cottages are. Obviously, in B2, you can have a mixed-use building, commercial on the bottom, residential on top. But as far as having several different little small houses on one piece of property, we don't have something for that. So that may possibly have to go to Board of Adjustments to get that use approved in that B2 zoning. Being in the CBD gives you some allowances on setbacks and that kind of thing, but it doesn't actually add any uses. The allowed uses or whatever the underlying zoning is on that. The landscape ordinance requires that the incompatible land use buffer for any commercial development, and along Stimson, it abuts that residential zoning on the north side, so we need the buffering along that. That's really just the general comments that we had up to this point. Nothing really earth-shattering on there. I do need a set of additional plans. I got several types of plans, but I didn't actually get the construction drawings that were submitted digitally. So if you just shoot over a copy of that so I can pull that up would be of great help. Open for any questions or discussion that you guys might have. Chris?
Yeah, Mike, I'll address. This is Chris Haley. You know, the whole conversation about LID techniques and the green space, to me, is kind of a moot point. It's not currently required because of the change by the city and the zoning. You know, it really, the underlying B2 zoning didn't change, but going to the, bringing us into the central business district was, you know, effectively a rezoning, and now none of those things are required. And so, to me, all that's kind of a moot point. I want to do this the right way and handle it the right way, and that's why I started emailing you guys 4 or 5 months ago to figure out the best approach. And you know, the feedback I got was, hey, we're just going to amend the site plan. And the feeling on my end is this has turned into a whole new site plan review. And my end goal is to get this approved the proper way, but time in my business is important. You know, I've got a loan on this property and interest accruing, and I don't want to get down this path and have to go, oh, we've got to go to an additional meeting, or, oh, you should have done a PUD or whatever. And so we got to figure this stuff out sooner rather than later. And when I first got your email, I was kind of worried because there's some issues in there. And, you know, the buffer, for example, between us and Stimson, on the surface, I understand your point, but it's kind of an illogical argument because we've got residential cottages facing residential streets. So we don't fit squarely in the box of your subdivision review, and that's why, you know, I've kind of came to you with open arms and said, how do I need to do this? And I don't know if it's waivers. I mean, the 8-foot sidewalk really doesn't make much sense on two sides. We've got it along Fairhope Avenue, but it really doesn't make sense to put an 8-foot sidewalk in a kind of an urban residential setting. And so I'm going to yield to you guys and, you know, tell me how to navigate that. Do we ask for a waiver on the sidewalk? Do we ask for a waiver on the buffer between two residential uses? And then the other big issue is, if we want to have individual deeded lots for these 12 cottages, I think what I'm hearing you say is we just need to go to Board of Adjustments and get that approved between Planning Commission and City Council approval, so I don't lose any time. But I need some clarification on that as well.
Well, we'll hit the cottages, the individual deeded lots. That would have those individual deeded lots would be a subdivision that's not covered under a site plan review. If you're having individual lots, that would be, you know, I think there's 12 cottages, so that would be a subdivision creating those actual lots for those cottages, and that would require them the properties to front on a paved public road, which would be the first big hurdle of the way that those cottages are set up. The Board of Adjustments, that is for if they're not going to be tried to be deeded off separately, that use of having several single family residential dwellings on one piece of property. That's not an allowed use that we currently have in B2 or any of the other zoning districts.
Yeah, Chris, this is Hunter. And I know we talked about, we've got an instrument for doing splitting the cottages off, if approved, through a condominiumization process. But I know we've discussed, and that's not your ultimate goal. So we've got to figure that out. But either way that goes, that has to fall behind an approved site plan. So we've got to get this through the works first.
Let me back up. Let me tell you what I would like from a market acceptability standpoint, and that is 12 individual deeded lots.
Right.
And what I'm hearing you say is that you can't do that under current subdivision regs because these houses won't all front a public street.
Well, that would require a waiver request. So my point to you there is we've got to get this site plan approved before either the condominiumization or what your goal is, and figure out if we can do that. So it's just not the topic of conversation right now. We're sensitive to that, and we're working toward an answer, but the subdivision of those lots we can't do without an approved plan. So with the site plan having to go to council, we can't get an end result through planning commission until we get a site plan approved for the lots.
Here's what I'm worried about, or I'm just trying to navigate this the best way to navigate it, and I keep hearing little bits and pieces in my mind is saying, hey, maybe we should do a PUD here and solve all these issues. And the conversation, Hunter, you and I had early on was, hey, I think we can do what you want to do through Board of Adjustments. And now I'm hearing maybe not.
Well, there's two issues there, and I'll call you after this. And the Board of Adjustments we did discuss, and for the use of those cottages, the way the dominoes fall, that would happen in between Planning Commission and Council. So it doesn't stretch your schedule out any further. So there's we're getting two things mixed up. So the Board of Adjustments should be a relatively easy path, and by the time you got to and let me say this, a relatively easy path in your schedule. And by the time you got to,
we're in Fairhope. Remember that?
I did clarify. By the time you got to council, you would have an answer for that variance. So, but that's a separate issue from carving the lots out to sell or transfer ownership of, and that's an instrument. Until we get a site plan, we really can't do that. Now, if and we've had a few projects that happen that way, and it gets you the ball rolling to start the project. And with the ones that had the condominiumized were really almost a rubber stamp at Planning Commission by that time, because there's approved site plan and you match it. We'll have to figure out if there's an option to get deeded lots. I've got some legal advice and checking into that, but that is not part of the site plan. That will have to be a follow-up subdivision of some sort. So we're working on that and getting a PUD couldn't do that either. There's that's why we kind of made the decision to say, let's do site plan, because a PUD doesn't split the lots up either. You would had to go through all the way through a PUD and then come back and follow it up with a subdivision to split those lots. So
originally, when I originally got this approved 4 years ago, we went through, you guys call it MOP. It was a full-blown subdivision hearing. And help me understand, what I don't want to do is go through what this is, site plan approval, and then have to go back through this whole darn process again for a subdivision approval.
What you'll have to do, so the MOP was really looking at number of units. So we didn't have to amend the MOP because you're not increasing your unit count.
Right.
But within this site plan, you now have a portion that's a different product than was originally approved of the multiple cottages. There is a clear process for it if you condominiumize the lots, which we discussed, that follows up with the MOP you have. And goes forward. Now we've got to look if there is an option to get actually individual lots. We're in the process of figuring that question out. So I don't think that triggers an MOP, but mentioning the MOP and kind of coming back full circle to what Mike first brought up, there are some LID techniques and things like that approved in the MOP and site plan that's on record right now. Becoming part of the CBD does not negate those requirements. So that's to be clear, that's why the review and the comments that Mike said, there is an MOP that required some drainage issues. That's when it was reviewed. So
I'm really lost now. So you're telling me the CBD does require LID techniques?
Your approved MOP right now that was done 4 years ago has requirements of those things, of drainage, and I'm not sure if there was an LID technique. I'm not familiar enough with what was approved, but that's where drainage issues, things were addressed, parking, some of those other buffer, maybe those things are approved the way they're sitting today. When you were,
I got administrative approval from Wayne Dias when y'all changed the zoning that I didn't have to do any of those drainage techniques.
Well, we can check in.
None of them are here, right, Chris Lee? And we don't have any of those in place now.
That's right. Since it was in the CBD, it's not a requirement as part of those, so we didn't put any of those in for this.
You can send me that documentation over so I have that in the file. Then we can definitely look at that. I was not aware of any documentation that was out there for any administrative approval to remove or not install anything that was in the MOP or site plan approval originally.
What
I'm hearing you say now is that we need to amend.
Well, that might be the answer. If that wasn't in our file, so if you got a copy of that from Wayne, that might be the answer we need for those things. That might be a simple.
That'll satisfy that if you have that.
Well, and then I'll have to do some digging and find that. I mean, I think it was a simple email administrative approval. I'm sure I saved it, but to the letter of the law, even though the city's changed the zoning and those things aren't currently required, because I have an approved MOP requiring those things, I gotta live with that rather than current zoning requirements.
For the things that are installed, yes. And if there's some of those things changed, then we have a review of that.
Okay. I mean, we keep coming back to these little issues. I mean, they're not little, but what I keep hearing is, do we need to go back and amend the MOP to bring us up to modern or current day times with the current zoning?
Well, the MOP requirements for the parcel or part of the development that is not developed right now, as it sits, is different from the phase 1 portico that already has everything implemented. And now you're saying that you got administrative approval to not include those. So you're saying the compact car spaces is not the pervious concrete that was in the MOP and site plan approval initially?
Well, it is pervious.
All right, then I guess I'm not sure what parts of portico phase 1 was not installed or was given administrative approval to do differently from the approval.
Well, I think that back then there was all kind of, Chris Lee, you can chime in here. There was all these bioswales and all this.
Right, and that was part of that internal courtyard was the bioswale, and then we had a greenway, and I'm trying to remember some of the other things. But what was installed in phase 1 was the pervious paving and the compact car parking spaces.
So you had 7 techniques spread across multiple phases.
Right. And we installed some in phase 1 and others were slated for phase 2.
Right. It's more, okay, the issue was not what's going to be in the second phase. Are those going to be installed? It was more the removing of LID techniques that were already in phase 1.
So really, it's where the townhomes are removing pervious pavement is the issue.
Yes, that's what that comment was.
And the
just
compact
removing
parking.
an LID technique and removing part of the approved compact parking spaces that's already built. What is a?
If I want to do that, what is the process?
I think we can, because site plan, this is why the logic of going through site plan. Site plan also can review drainage and those things. So this can be done through the site plan review. So there needs to be the request there and approval through the planning commission and council.
So we need to, as part of this hearing next month, we need to request removal of a previously approved LID technique and replacing it with those townhomes.
Correct. I would just have if you include a narrative, just stating that the changes to phase 1 are to include the removal of X, Y, and Z, and it's going to be adding X, Y, and Z. What it is. It's more, just kind of now what is going to be changed and what is existing. So we're not just doing a site plan review for the undeveloped portion. It's still the entire site, including the improvements that are currently there.
Gotcha.
That makes more sense. It's not saying that you have to include any rain gardens or things that are in the future phases that were there. That's not what I'm saying at all. So if that was kind of your worry, I apologize for that, but it wasn't.
No, I read it that y'all wanted us to stick to using 7 LID techniques, and I misunderstood the comment.
No, that was just I was part of the review of the initial MOP and what was approved originally, and that I point out the removal of one LID technique was going to have to be approved through this process.
Yeah, and Chris, we looked at the original site plan, so in our review process, and some things changed from that. Some simple things and no problem there, like moving the drive-through on one side of the building to the other. I think there was some drainage that was handled back off Stinson at the dead end. Some things that weren't in the original site plan. What we're doing is basically, in your request, if approved, is replacing that site plan. So the things that changed in phase 1 need to be illustrated and highlighted as we get approval for this one. So it just clears all those things up.
So Mike and Hunter, how do the other issues like the landscape buffer on Stimson? Logically, we got residential against residential,
and I think we can get behind that. I think we can get behind if the cottages are approved. There's a residential use for residential use, but we have a technical requirement, so it just needs to be addressed in our reports to you, and you need to request. This is out of the box. This is a B2 and CBD, and we're proposing a product that hasn't been installed anywhere. So this is actually a residential use, much less intrusive than what's on the books. I don't know, but I'm kind of.
Well, it's just what we've got is a weird animal. It's mixed use, but it's spread across 2.5 acres, and it's not the traditional mixed use in a big single building. It's just spread across horizontal surfaces.
Right.
But it is all one big parcel.
Yeah. We've got to look at technical merits, and then y'all respond, and that's kind of giving you some feedback on how to address that.
Gotcha. Well, we can get you these other elevations and other requested items on here. Easy enough. Chris Lee, is there anything else that we need to address?
No, I don't have any questions for him. It's pretty straightforward with the stuff I got to do.
Okay.
So that's all the questions that I have. Is there any staff members with the city have any questions or comments?
Just the only thing I wanted is, hey, Chris, this is Buford. Just wanted to jump in here. And Chris, I know this is frustrating, but understand, I think what Mike and Hunter have laid out for you is that using the site plan review process focus on the process, not on the drawing site plan. This is taking one process and letting it solve all these issues as one process. Yeah, you may need, on the side, you may need a subdivision to create the lots you want to create, but this is actually the streamlined way of doing it because you can solve all these issues in one process.
Gotcha. I guess I kind of get lost in the monikers of subdivision, site plan, MOP, and it's confusing.
Chris, it's confusing because the MOP is a process within the subdivision regulations. It uses the technical requirements of the subdivision regulations to evaluate a development, and that's confusing.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you, Buford. We'll get all these items back to you promptly.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, guys.
All right, thanks.
All right. If nothing else on SR 2002, we'll jump into our last agenda item, SD 2043. Buford.
All right. If y'all can indulge me a second, let me share screens here. Okay. Can everyone see the proposed village subdivision? All right. Well, we'll jump in. So we have a village subdivision located on the east side of Highway 181, about 1 mile south of County Road 32, the intersection of 181 and 32. 120 lots. We've seen this before. A previous version of this with 180 lots was not approved by the Planning Commission, and so we have a new application for modifying the subdivision. And the village subdivision process, of course, is kind of like a PUD, but not inside the city. So it would be up to the Planning Commission to approve this layout. Then it would follow with the preliminary plat process. And do we have anyone with the Dewberry or the developer aboard?
Yes. Good morning, Buford. This is Casey with Dewberry. I'm here on behalf of Dewberry.
Good morning.
And we've got Joe Everson on the call from 68 Ventures joining us as well.
Yes, good morning, guys.
And Casey and Joe, thank you for your email. And I was able to glance at it very, very quickly before we started this meeting. And what I would say, Casey and Joe, is that the email that Joe sent me had attached what 100-foot wide, 15,000 square foot lots would look like on this same site. And I think that's the main thing, is to show both to the Planning Commission, compare and contrast the two, and see if the Planning Commission can get behind the 120 lot village subdivision as opposed to the traditional 15,000 square foot subdivision. So with that, Casey, I'll turn it over to you. Any questions of me or fellow staff?
Well, Joe, would you like to speak first? I don't know if you have anything you want to share with the DRC prior to diving into the comments.
No, I mean, I think we can dive into the comments. I've got, a couple of questions on, some of the final comments, but I'll let you guys drive it until we get to that point. Okay,
sounds good. In looking through the comments that we received yesterday, there was one in particular, Article 4, Section F30H. Let's see. You're requesting the size, location, and dimensions of all buildings and improvements on the site plan. Is that just a typical lot detail you'd like for me to show?
Well, and because this being pretty much basically a traditional residential development, last time we actually had dimensioned elevations of the different homes that were going to be included on the site, and we didn't get that this time, and that may have just been a simple oversight, but we need that again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have them. I'll be sending them to you shortly. Okay. But is there anything you would like me specifically to show on the plat, or just send those floor plans and elevations?
Yeah, I don't think at this point that would be beneficial to try to draw those things in on the plat. So I think that the elevation drawings, basically the whatever version you have now of what we received on the previous application will be fine.
Okay. You made a comment about wetland delineation
Yes.
and the blue line. And I spoke to Kathy Barnett, and I'll just go ahead and share it with you and include it on the response that we provide. But let me pull it up real quick. The site was evaluated in January 2020 with jurisdictional determination submitted to the Army Corps of Engineers. No wetlands were found on site, and the blue line represented on this map was a stormwater conveyance. And the Corps of Engineers reviewed and confirmed our assessment with approved jurisdictional determination issued. So we've got a Corps of Engineer letter that we can provide.
Perfect.
Detailing all that out.
And y'all, what I'm trying to do is try to prepare you for what the Planning Commission will ask, so that way we're prepared.
Yeah. I understand. I appreciate it. Other than that, I don't have very many questions or comments regarding anything. I don't know if Joe has anything he wants to share.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys don't mind, I mean, I would like to jump down to kind of the final comments, or section F3S, as in Sam. So Buford, this kind of gets back to, the density discussion and all that. And I think that, kind of the first part, we can describe, or we kind of elaborate on the comparison between the by right development versus the village subdivision we're proposing. So I get that. The one thing I wanted to zero in on is the leapfrog development. And, what our goal is to kind of show that if you were to travel down 181 from, just call it from Stone Creek, and you eliminated fairly large Chapel Hill Farm, privately owned tract of land, and then just kind of went down 181, there's really only maybe one or two parcels, and I would really, neither one of them are the size of ours, but I would say as far as leapfrogging, we're probably only jumping over, I would say 2 at the most parcels before you land at ours. So we're going from a higher density development like Stone Creek, traveling down 181, you run into, you run into Gaineswood, you run into that Southtown, and then it's our development. So I was just going to highlight that on a map. I mean, have you guys, what's your thoughts on kind of alleviating the quote unquote leapfrog development concern?
Well, I'm just trying to make certain that y'all are prepared when you get before the Planning Commission, trying to anticipate the Planning Commission's questions and concerns, because when you go with a village subdivision, it's it's pretty much subjective.
Sure.
If they like it, if they support it, then they can vote to approve it, and
right.
Then after that, it's a routine subdivision. After that, I'm just trying to make certain that y'all are aware of their concerns and the types of things that they have asked of staff, and
okay.
that's so that way you're prepared. That way you're prepared for the meeting and are able to explain all of that.
Got it. Is there any, and I know the term leapfrog is in quotation marks, is there any kind of, guidance on what is considered leapfrog as opposed to what's not, or is this just kind of a completely subjective term that we're using?
Joe, let me jump in real quick.
Sure, Joe,
please.
Fire away, Hunter.
So one of the missing components here, and ideally we would like to have our growth in our whole planning jurisdiction covered with our comp plan. As we've discussed before, this area was just not included. Maybe it wasn't foreseen that that's there. So, by its nature, when we say leapfrog, that's just a term we use, in the industry to describe this process. How we get there and measure those things, and what's leapfrog is by the density calculations and those things, because that kind of takes into account what's in the vicinity. That in a rural area with farmland, that certainly hurts someone wanting a higher density, but that's when we're kind of saying we're jumping. Then we also look at accessibility of utilities and some of those things. So while that's something we're trying to describe the situation, by not being part of our comprehensive plan, there is no guidance. Right. So the situation we find ourselves in is I think similar to a couple of other village subdivisions that I know you're working on one now, but that are so far outside of our corporate limits, they just haven't been addressed in our comprehensive plan. We're going to be addressing those in the updated one as we move forward over the next couple of years. But, it's just not there. So it's kind of on you guys to sell this. And we're going to look at, and our critique is going to be based on, I think the access to utilities are covered, but we've got really the lingering one's kind of density. Okay. And if we can get somewhere close to, and I bet you're going to have a question about that based on emails we were sent.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, I think the email that we sent kind of explains it, but I get the density calculation. I feel like the second calculation, which yielded 79 lots, or you guys recommended 79 lots, I think you kind of, the green space that you removed from the 59 acres was representative of what we're going for right now. Meaning, if you pull out 25 acres from 59 acre development and then calculate the density based on that, it's going to yield a lower number. Whereas, when we first approached you guys, the density calculation, minus the green space and all that, yielded 100 lots. So I just want to see, first time we came in, it said you guys need to be at 100. And now we come in and it says we need to be at 79. So I kind of get what happened, I think. I just want to see which one we're going to be held to.
Yeah, and I'm looking at you. Thanks for sending that over. We talked about that a few weeks ago. So finally seeing that kind of gets us all on the same page. And, what was sent over, I don't think would ever, by the time we started really, reviewing it based on Sub Regs, I probably wouldn't be 100 lots, but probably somewhere in between the 79 and 100. It is just a gut thought there, but that's only being able to look at that plan for 45 minutes, and while we're trying to discuss the other items. Right. So I think that's just further discussion, and we can kind of touch base after. But I think what you are seeing is, when the first question was answered in 100 lots, it was basically just formulaic. It wasn't, taking into account some of the real world challenges of topography and some of those things. So it probably where it kind of more information we get, the better estimate we can give you on that. But I think we're somewhere, the density answer somewhere in between those two numbers.
Okay. All right, and I guess kind of I wanted to make sure you guys got a copy of the full color plans with the amenities highlighted and some detail on the amenities. Did you guys?
We did. Buford, since this is a public meeting, you want to share that just so if anybody's curious?
Well, we don't have it, and Hunter, I have to apologize to you. We don't have that electronically, okay. and because of the vivid colors, I did not try to scan those, and so y'all, that's my fault for not asking for it electronically. This meeting kind of snuck up on me. Here's what I'll say, gentlemen, and I'll just kind of illuminate what I put in the review cover letter, is that, based upon that, I think is, a very good, an excellent effort of complying with the green space requirements of the subdivision regulations. Obviously, we don't know what those green space numbers are, but we do know how much open space is being shown, and we know that there will be green space in there that will, almost certainly comply with the subdivision regulations. So that part, is fine. That part is certainly fine. So no objection there.
Okay. All right. I think that's about all. I think I know how we can handle the density and the quote unquote leapfrog development concern. Basically just kind of highlighting some developments that are close by and some barriers to entry between the more dense projects and ours. So I think we can accomplish that. But other than that, that's all I had. Casey, unless you had something else to ask him.
Nope.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Casey.
All right.
Yeah.
Any other comments on this one?
I think that's all I've got, everybody. Casey, Joe, thank you for jumping in here with us today.
You got it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Okay, y'all, I'm going to unshare.
All right. I think that's all we got. We do have a minor zoning amendment change for bayfront lots. That's just kind of allowing people to place buildings and structures in between the water and the building. So not too much to that. Don't need a whole lot of discussion today. So we will end the meeting. I appreciate everyone joining us.